Hello and welcome to LevelUP. This is our Python series where Angus is going to teach you the basics of coding in Python. Enjoy!
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode in our Intro to Python series. So today we're going to keep pushing ahead with our Intro to Python, and we're going to look deeper in conditions in Python. So if you remember a few episodes ago, closer to the start of the tutorial, we looked at if statements, and we know that we could control the flow of the program. We could run different code depending on if different conditions were true or not. So we're going to dive deeper into conditions and learn how we can control that flow even more. And yeah, we'll just get into it. So to start off, we're going to introduce another data type. They're called Booleans, and they allow us to store a variable that's either true or false. So I'm just going to create a variable here. If you want to type along as well, I'll call my boolean. So boolean is just once again our fancy word for true or false. That's what they're called. And we can either type them in Python by typing out true, so that if we have this, this will be true. And we can also type out with false, and that will be false. And these are the two states that a boolean can be in. And make sure in Python we have a capital F and capital T for our booleans. So just remember that. So I'm just going to create one that's called true. Oops, true. And we can print this out because this is a variable. We can print true, and if we run this, we see true. Oh no, don't print true. Sorry, print my boolean. They both do the same thing, but this one's just accessing the value stored in this variable. And obviously we can set that to false as well. And false. There we go. So this is the concept of Booleans, and this is how our if statements work. So if you remember back, we had if, and then what we'll do is we'll do my boolean equals true pass. Actually, we're just going to remove that here. So before, when we were using our booleans, we would say, or not our booleans, sorry, when we were creating if statements, we would say like if we had a number, say like 1 is less than 2. And what this actually does is this returns a boolean value. So what that looks like in our if statements is this will only run if my boolean, if we're just using a single variable, is true. So I'll just type print, it works, use an exclamation mark here, and we'll hit run. And you see we get nothing out because my boolean is false, so this condition is technically false, so it won't run. But if we set this to true, and we hit run, it works because this condition is true because my boolean up here is set to true. So this if statement checks whether this is true, which it is, so it runs it. And that's all that our conditions were doing earlier. When we had our 1 is less than 2, obviously that is true, 1 is less than 2, so it works as displayed. And all that does is returns true. So technically, when this runs, this is just replaced with true, and that works. But if we were to say 1 is greater than true, 1 is greater than true, 1 is greater than 2, sorry, we know that isn't true. So nothing's displayed because that's technically, when at runtime, it's replaced with false. That's what happens, which is why, when we run this here, we see nothing, because that's all that happens. So with this in mind, we can create some more elaborate conditions. And there's a few, there's six main operators, sorry, that for conditional statements. We have less than, which we've just seen. We have greater than. We have less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, equal to. So that's our two equal signs here. It's two equal signs, not one, because one equal sign assigns a variable, so it has to be 2 for conditional statements. Just remember that. 1 equal sign for assigning variables, 2 equal signs for comparing variables as a condition, and not equal to, which is an exclamation mark. Exclamation marks in a lot of programming languages basically means not. and that's the case in Python. So this basically means not, and the exclamation mark means not, and then the equal sign equal to. So that's not equal to. Oops. So these are all the ones that we can use to check conditions. So what we'll start with, I'll just create a few variables, and we'll do a whole load of examples just so you can see how these work in more detail. So we'll create num1 equals, we'll say 20, and num2 equals 40. So in our first if statement, we'll just type if num1, and we'll say equals num2, we will print they are equal, like that. So we're basically checking if number 1 equals number 2, we'll print this. And we'll just throw an else statement in here just to show you. Print they are not equal. And then sad face. They're not equal. So if we run this, we'd expect this to get displayed, right? Because when this checks the first condition, num1 doesn't equal num2 in this case, 20 doesn't equal 40, so the else statement's run. And that's exactly what we see, they're not equal. But if we were to set num1 equal to 40 like that, we have 40 and 40, we run that, they're equal. I'm just going to get rid of this first variable up here, my boolean equals true, because we're not using it anywhere. So I'll just to avoid confusion, I'll get rid of that. We can also check the other ones. I'll just go through all of them again. Remember, we've got less than. Well, of course, num1 isn't less 1 than num2 because they're both 40. So if we run that, we get to see they're not equal. But if we change this to a less than or equal to, this case it is true because 40 is less than or equal to 40. So if we hit run, they are equals displayed. And of course, we can chain multiple statements together using elif statements. So if I remove this, and we have if num1 is less than num2, obviously that's not true. 40 is not less than 40, like we've just shown. And I'm going to add an elif statement, elif, and we say num1 equals num2. And we can print they are equal. And I'm just going to change this first print statement to say something informative like num1 is less than num2. So we know what happens. Oops, sorry, I had a space there. So we've got our number 1. So if this isn't true, so if this checks the first statement, number 1 less than number 2, obviously that's not true. 40 is not less than 40. So it checks the second statement, elif num1 equals num2, which 40 does equal 40, so we'll run this, and then this else statement will be ignored. So if we hit run, we see they are equal is displayed. Not the first one, because this condition isn't true, but the second condition is true, so it prints that and skips all the other ones. Just make sure your tabbing's correct as well. I think I've said this in other tutorials, but Python, whenever it sees a colon like this, it looks to see if there's indentation underneath it. So if it's not, you see we get red lines like this because it's not indented correctly. So if you just press tab at the start of the line, that'll sort all your errors. As soon as we start untabbing from this, it's considered to be out with this if statement here. Cool. And then we can do as many elif statements as we want. We can say elif num1 is greater than num2. And we can say print num1 is greater than num2. So if we change these, num1 would have to be bigger. So if we change this to hundreds, 100 isn't less than 40, so that's ignored, and we go to the next line. Num1 doesn't equal num2, so this line's ignored. But this one will be true, so we'll see this displayed. We hit run, yep, num1 is greater than num2. And we can change this, if I set this to 10, then the first condition will be true, and we just ignore all the other ones. So if I hit run again, num1 is less than num2, which is what we're displaying here, because this condition here was true. So this is run, and then we ignore all the other conditions in the elif and else's. Awesome. I'm just going to delete this here. And then, of course, we can check not equal. So right now, two equal signs say equal. Obviously, this isn't the case right now, so we hit run, nothing's displayed. But if we change this to a not equal, exclamation marks, equal sign, hit run, we say, oh, that's the wrong message, but if we change that, we see it's run. This is basically, the message is wrong here. It should say they're not equal to, but we see it's displayed because 10 doesn't equal 40, like that. And we can also do this with strings. We could say string 1 and string 2. We can't do, I'm just going to rename these variables to string 1 and string 2 because they're no longer numbers, and we want to use meaningful variable names. I'll change this to string 1 and string 2. We can't use less than or equal than, or less than equal to or greater than equal to with strings. They're for numbers, as you're probably familiar with maths, but we are able to use equal and not equal to, like that. So obviously string 1 and string 2, well, the text, I'll rename these to hello and maybe goodbye. And right now these aren't the same. Hello doesn't equal goodbye, so this condition is true. And I'll just print they are not equal. We hit run, and we see that this message is displayed because string 1 doesn't equal string 2. But obviously, if we change that to equal, so if string 1 does equal string 2, and we hit run, we see nothing's displayed because this condition is false. We can actually take this one step further, and we can chain multiple conditions together in one if statement. So I'll show you what that means. Instead of typing these messages out, I'll just print true, and I'll down here print false. So we'll just print true if our first condition is true, and we'll print false if this condition isn't false, just to keep it simple in this example. So I'll keep this, and as we're familiar, this we'll see false displayed because this condition right now isn't true. Hello doesn't equal goodbye, so the else statement's run. We can also then use two more operators called and or, and you see they go blue and repl here because they're reserved keywords in Python. They have a use in Python. So we can actually, after condition, so we're checking if string 1 equals string 2, we can then type and run another condition. We could say, what about if string 1 and string 1 equals, and we don't need to just compare variables, we can create our own text in here. Just for simplicity, I'll say home. So this will match this one right now. We'll change these a bit later. So if I was to say right now that we'll run this and we say false is displayed, because whilst this condition here is true, and as you're familiar with what we did with variables, that would be replaced with true. That's what that would do. This is true. This one isn't, and this is replaced with false. So technically we have here true and false, and this and will basically say, oh, we'll only run this if statement if both of these are true. So if we run that, we see false again because true is not false. But if we replace that with true and true is true, they're both true, so we say true displayed, which is this one here because this condition is true. I'm just going to undo all of this to get back our variables. This is how we can create our true statements. If I said not equal to, so hello doesn't equal goodbye, so this one's replaced with true. String 1 does equal hello, so that's also true, which is why we see true is displayed like that. And we can also use or. I'm going to replace this again with not equals. We'd expect false to be displayed because, as we've explained a few times. And then we can use or. And what this will do is it will run if only one of the conditions is true, or one or two. As long as one condition is true, so either this is true or this is true, or both of them are true for that matter, it'll run this. If we hit run, we see we get true, because despite this statement here being false, this one here is true. So we get our first message, this condition is true, run that and ignore the else statement. So we'll just recap quickly. We learned about booleans, which are our new data type for the lesson, trues and false. So we can create my boolean equals, and that can be either true or false. And this is the core principle of how our if statements work. And they will only run if a condition is true like that, and if a condition is false, it won't run. Then we learned about our operators. We have less than, we have greater than, we have less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, not equal to, and equal to, where there are two equal signs. This is certainly something you probably either want to remember or you'll just naturally remember as you start using them. So those are the 6 conditions that we can use at this stage. And then we can also use our and ors, are these 2 commands, to chain multiple conditions together using the operators greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to, or equal to. Bit of a mouthful there, but you know, we can do that. Just to demonstrate that here, actually, I'll go back over the and ors. If we had false and true, this is technically a condition here, and this will assign the result of this condition to our my boolean. So I'll print my boolean here, and as you expect, we will see false because false and true are not true, and we'll say or instead. And obviously, remember, or only runs when one of them are true, one or more of these terms are true. So we hit run, and we see true because true or false, you know, true is there, one or more, so it's assigned true. So that's just quite a lot there. Those are how Booleans work. That's how we can create more complex conditions, and we can really start altering the flow of our program quite a bit more by using this concept. So that's quite a lot to take on board there. So I really recommend, you know, scrolling back in the video and really looking at each of the concepts, you know, all of the operators and all of those special commands, the and or, and trying some of them out. You know, create some booleans, write some if statements, maybe go back in the other projects that you've previously done, add some more if statements to them, some more complex things that we can do. I can't quite remember off the top of the head what projects we've done, but I'm sure you've created some of your own, so why don't you go back and make them more complex with not only these conditional statements that we've just learned, but also some of the other things we've learned in other tutorials, like lists and for loops. You know, add those to your projects if you can. So that's really good, guys. We've learned quite a bit today, so well done on getting this far in the intro to Python, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye!
That's it for this video. Check out our channels for some more tutorials from Angus on Python. Join us next time. Bye!